In this video, I'll be going over Signing Naturally 11.12, Culture, ASL Student in the Community. So in this section, then we are given a video from Signing Naturally, and it's two different scenes of the same thing, but two different things that happened. So we see that this is at the cafe, and so we see a deaf person going up to order from a hearing person at a cafe. They're going up to order a tea. So when they go up, then they are gesturing and signing to the barista, asking for an iced tea, but the person doesn't seem to be understanding. So whether they just completely didn't understand or they just weren't really interested in trying very much, even though the deaf person was trying different ways of signing a tea, you know, like you kind of like dip it in, you kind of like stir it around a little, and the clerk is just like, I have no idea what you're talking about, okay? So at that point, the first scene, then we see an ASL student who is farther back in line who comes up and tells the barista what the deaf person is ordering and just completely takes over, does not say anything to the deaf person, does not mention anything. So as they do this, then this is a bit insulting to the deaf person, even though they were trying to be nice because of the fact that they took over and they didn't give the deaf person any control in the situation, okay? So they just went ahead and did that without asking. In the second scene, then we see that the same thing has happened and the deaf person is in the middle of trying to mime out, okay, so you know, like a tea bag, like a tea, okay, you know what a tea is, it sounds the same. So trying to do these different things, and the ASL student comes up and says, hey, I know a little bit of ASL. Do you want some help? Do you want me to tell her? And he says, no, that's okay. And then he goes back and he says, okay, so you're not getting this. And then he kind of like points to the paper like to write. And so they're like, okay, so he gets the paper and he writes down that he wants an iced tea, shows it to the person, and he's able to go ahead and get his order. So in that one, then the deaf person actually has the choice in their communication how they want to communicate with the barista, as well as the option for them to decide that they don't want the hearing ASL student to help them, okay? So the difference between the two videos is in the first one, the ASL student just went ahead and helped rather than asking. And then which does the deaf community prefer? The second one, where the ASL student would ask if they would like help and then leaves that up to the deaf person. So in ASL 1, you've learned different ways of communicating with others, and we talked about the fact that you need to let the deaf person know that you sign rather than just voicing when they're there. So the deaf person actually had no idea that there was an ASL student or anybody else who signed there, so they would not have known that that was an option. You're to avoid spoken English or using your voice without relaying the information in ASL. So the ASL student in the first clip just came up to the counter and started talking and saying what the deaf person wanted without even telling the deaf person that they were there or asking their permission. The third was to let the deaf person set the communication mode, which may be one of these: signing, gesturing, writing or typing, using a third person or intermediary, or speaking and lip reading. Okay, so the ASL student contradicted all of these in the first one. She did not let the deaf person know that she signed. She went ahead and used spoken English without relaying the information in ASL, and she prevented the deaf person from setting his own preferred communication mode with the barista. So deaf people are a linguistic and cultural minority in the US and Canada, so opportunities to assure achieving equality in as many situations as possible is essential, even if the situation is small and mundane as this one in the cafe. So if the barista had asked if everyone in the cafe or anyone in the cafe knew sign language, then even the ASL student at that point should have informed the deaf person of the request from the barista and asked them what role that they would like anyone else to play. So the ASL student should not just automatically start interpreting for the barista. So one of the things that I've seen in the community is the fact that deaf people are independent. So even though the ASL student thought that she was being nice and wanting to go up and help and be courteous to the deaf person and help them, the deaf community does not really need help. He gets along fine every day in his life, whether he's going through the drive-through and they have something awesome, like some of the Starbucks have a video on screen and maybe someone who signs there as well. That's awesome. So that is something where there's access and there's accommodations, or even just driving up and writing something down and giving it to the barista, okay? They have to get along in everyday life, and they've come up with a lot of different things. So you never know, maybe the barista after meeting him says, it's actually really hard to kind of communicate, and now that I know what he was ordering, then I kind of get how he was like saying tea, or like he was kind of like dunking and stirring the tea bag. Like I kind of get that, and maybe now I'm inspired to take American Sign Language, and I want to be able to learn that. Or the next time I'm going to respond this way. So maybe even just having that interaction, that will be something that will be more of an open access for the deaf person the next time, because they were able to handle it the way that they chose to. So knowing this, then I would recommend that if you, as an ASL student, see someone in the community, or even just another signing person like myself, then if I see someone in the community, I will maybe say hi, not every single time, but maybe I'll say hi, maybe I'll start up a conversation. But if I see that they are having a conversation with someone who's hearing, maybe they're just completely not getting it, or if they were trying to place an order, I would not go up automatically and help them. Maybe if I see that there is a big thing and maybe they are trying to do their credit card purchase, but it's not going through because of something, and there's a whole miscommunication, and I see that, this is something that's really important, and this is kind of turning into a mess, I might say, hey, just I sign if you are interested, and I'm willing to interpret what they said, or tell you what they said. You don't really want to help them because they're not really in need of help, but maybe in that situation they would be. So they might say, actually, I'm kind of offended that you even asked me that because I don't need your help. They might say, you know what, that would be great, go ahead, please. Okay? Or they might be like, oh my gosh, that is so sweet that you offered, and yes, absolutely jump in. Okay? So there's different responses from different deaf people, so you have to be willing to accept whatever response that they have in that situation. The next two clips are in a gallery, so it is deaf people looking at pictures, and or maybe hearing people as well, and everyone in there is signing about what they're talking about, and then you see two people over in the corner, and they're having a signed conversation about maybe like their ASL class. In the second clip, you see everyone signing except for the two people in the corner that are hearing, and they're just standing there talking using their voices. So when comparing the two clips, the difference that you notice is that in a signing environment, or even just with other deaf people around, the ASL students or the hearing people, whoever they may be, are just choosing to use their voices and not make the communication access equal. Okay, and then which do you think the deaf community prefers? I really hope you said the first one where everyone was signing, because that's definitely what you should do. Whether it's me at an interpreting assignment, whether I'm at a deaf event hanging out with friends, maybe I just went over